what's up everyone, Aslah here. So I thought it might be interesting to talk about both software and hardware tech that I use as a software engineer on a day-to-day basis. And some of these tech are essential for my day-to-day work and some of them are not. But I still want to discuss a few things of why I use what I use. So without further ado, let's get to it. So I want to start with the different softwares I use and then get to the hardware tech. And I have grouped all the softwares based on their purpose. So the first group is productivity softwares. Now, these are softwares designed to enhance your productivity and help you create and manage documents, spreadsheets, presentations, etc. So at work, I mostly use Microsoft suite of products. So apart from the usual Excel, PowerPoint, and Word, we also use cloud-based content management, collaboration, and sharing tools like Box, SharePoint, and Google Docs. As you know, there are a lot of cloud-based content management tools these days, and every one of them seems to be having their own good and bad. But I generally like using Box because Box is very well structured and I feel like it has a very good UI. And if your company is logged into a specific vendor like Microsoft or Google, you might also end up using SharePoint, which is basically similar to Box, where you use to collaborate and share documents with your team members. We also use Teams at work to share your documents, but as you already know, the purpose of Teams is not primarily to share documents. But it's definitely also a place where you could store all your documents related to a specific chat or project. So on the project management side, on my current project, we use Azure DevOps. So unlike Jira, which is also a project management tool, Azure DevOps Server is a Microsoft product that provides version control, reporting, requirements management, project management, automated builds, testing, and release management capabilities. It covers the entire application lifecycle and enables DevOps capabilities. So Azure DevOps is this one go-to project management tools most companies or clients defer to, mainly because it's a one place that gets you everything that you possibly need, including Git, pipeline, version control of your tasks, running integration, and so on. Even though I very much like Jira and I like how well built it is definitely missing some of these features that Azure DevOps is offering. And one of the primary reasons most companies opt for something like Azure DevOps is basically the need to have to pay for only one software. So most companies or clients try to avoid paying subscription fees to a lot of software products, which usually leaves a dent in their revenue. So if you have a tool like Azure DevOps, you just pay once and you have everything that comes with it. So moving on to the second category of softwares that I use is development softwares. So the number one, of course, on the list is an IDE or integrated development environment. So for the programming development, VS Code is my choice of IDE. This should be my favorite Microsoft product. I think VS Code is very well built and it supports almost all the languages and frameworks that you generally work with. And it also has a lot of plugins and extensions that can help you with your development regardless of what language or framework you're working on. And for me, it's mainly how lightweight VS Code is on your machine. I use a MacBook for my work, and I think VS Code is a very less resource heavy IDE compared to all the other IDEs out there. For example, I was using IntelliJ during my final year university on my old MacBook Air. And because how heavy IntelliJ is or how resource heavy it is, my MacBook Air was almost about to take off from the fan noise. And IntelliJ seems to have a specific desktop app for separate programming languages. For example, if I remember correctly, for Python, they have a PyCharm, and for general programming, you have IntelliJ IDEA. So JetBrains has a suite of products that involves different type of IDEs that supports different languages. And usually all of these that I have tried at least has been very resource heavy on my machine. So in that regard, I really appreciate VS Code, even though VS Code do have some bugs here and there. All in all, I don't think there is a better alternative to VS Code at the moment. But that being said, if a better player comes into the market, I'll be the first one to try that. Moving on, I use GitHub, which is a web-based platform for version control using Git and a collaborative space for developers to host and review code. I use the GitHub desktop app too, but generally I prefer using the Git CLIs over desktop. Even though I think the desktop app is very well built. But at the moment, my project has integrated Git into the DevOps, so I don't really have to go deal with GitHub on the web. So I just use the CLI most often. Postman is a popular API testing tool that allows developers to send requests, receive responses, and automate tests. So if you want to test your integration endpoints, this is what I use. I think Postman is the best in game. I haven't seen any alternative to Postman yet. Maybe it's out there and I haven't heard about it or used it yet. But I think Postman is very well built. It has a lot of good features like collaborations and workspaces. I also use Sublime as my choice of text editor. Even though Sublime is also an IDE, I don't know if most people use it to develop things on it, but I usually use it as a text editor. Generally, when you have a JSON response or any other responses that you want to quickly put into a document and go through them, Sublime is pretty handy to do that. So that is one other development software that I use on a day-to-day basis. Next category of software is communication software. This is another territory of software where I think there are a lot of options out there, but my current company is using Microsoft suite of products, like I said, so the obvious choice is Microsoft Teams for all the internal communications, but I also use Zoom for any external communication. Even though I was so used to Slack before I started using Teams, I think Teams has improved a lot recently, but I still think some of the really good features that Slack has, Microsoft Teams is still missing them. Especially on the macOS, I don't think Microsoft Teams is very well optimized. It lacks some features like dragging and dropping pictures or documents to your chat. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes you have to copy the picture and paste it on your chat. But for example, on Slack, you could easily do that. And Slack has features like Huddle, where you don't have to initiate a call. And also on Teams, the status that you have generally is buggy. Even when you're available, it might show you that you're away. If you're away, it might show you you're busy. So I think it is a very well built tool, but it's still lacking some features and generally lacking behind some of the competitors like Slack out there. So moving to the interesting side of hardware tech, the main machine that I use for everything I do is a 16-inch M1 MacBook Pro. So I have got the 16-inch M1 MacBook Pro with 10-core CPU, 16-core GPU, 32 gigs of unified memory, and 512 GBs of SSD. So even though I have the larger screen MacBook with me, if I'm working at home or in the office, I generally use my MacBook as an external machine that just plugs into my external monitor. Otherwise, if I'm on the go or using my MacBook separately, that's when the screen real estate of the 16-inch really comes handy. Speaking of external monitors, what you see behind me is one of my favorite recent purchase. It's the HP X34 ultra wide monitor. To be exact, it has a 34.5 inch of screen. It is a gaming monitor that has 175 Hz of refresh rate and 2K resolution. So this was one of my best recent purchase because since I got this, I was really able to maximize the screen real estate and get more stuff done more efficiently. I'm planning to do a full review on this monitor very soon because I think this is a very affordable monitor for what it's offering in terms of performance and productivity. So stay tuned to see when it comes out. Moving on, the other two hardwares that I generally use is the Magic Keyboard and the Magic Mouse. Magic Keyboard, I'm really happy with it, especially the one that I have with the Touch ID. I don't really need to open my MacBook. Like I said, I usually keep it closed when I'm using it with the external display. So I get to use the fingerprint, and I really like the travel of these keys and how minimal the sound is. But I know I'm gonna get a lot of hate for using Magic Mouse because Magic Mouse is not the most ergonomic mouse out there. But like I have said this in my previous review videos, I just use it for its integration with the ecosystem and mainly the gestures. You could basically do all the gestures the trackpad could do on the Magic Mouse. Even though it's just not the most ergonomic mouse out there, it just gets the stuff done and I'm comfortable with it. So that's a sneak peek into the tech, both software and hardware, that I use mostly on a day-to-day basis. So if you're interested, I have done an entire video on what I do as a software engineer on a typical day. I will link it somewhere over here if you're interested. That being said, subscribe if you haven't already. If you have been, thanks for watching.